We thought we'd start today by talking about some of the tax planning questions that we're getting asked the most from our clients lately. And the first topic is going to be around tax planning for retirement. While you might not know it, tax planning for retirement really should start a few years before you retire, not after you retire. One of the first things that you should be thinking about, and probably about the last 5 years before you retire, is making sure that you're maximizing your 401k contributions. You want to make sure that you have as much money set aside for retirement as you can. And those 401k contribution limits go up every year. Make sure that you've let your HR department know that you want to maximize it at the start of every year to take advantage of that. So the second thing I wanted to just mention for those of you who are within 5 years of retiring, I'm sure that some of you are probably in that 60 to 63 range this year. New this year is a supercharged 401k catch-up. You can put an extra $3,750 into your 401k this year. Make sure you're taking advantage of that, and that you let HR know about that as well. You have to specifically ask them to do that, so don't presume that just because you say, I want to max my 401k, that they are going to be putting that extra money into your 401k. Another thing that you might want to just think about, this is kind of a maybe when you're in your last years before retiring, you should think about if you want to move your 401k contributions to a Roth 401k. Most companies these days offer that as an option for your 401k. And the reason why I mention that is because when you reach retirement, it's really nice when you're sitting down with your financial planner to kind of have the option of having some after-tax buckets of money to draw from, so that not everything is just sitting in an IRA that becomes taxable. The reason why I say that's a maybe is because when you approach retirement, often you're in your highest income earning years as you approach retirement. So, you might decide that you're in too high of an income tax bracket, but it's something to consider at least. For those of you who are in that, I'm more than 10 years away from retiring, you might want to think about what tax bracket you're in right now. And if you think you're in a low enough tax bracket, you should switch your 401ks to a Roth if you think it makes sense. Trust me, when you reach retirement, your future self will thank you for doing that. And then one of the other things that you should be thinking about as you approach retirement, or those of you who are even more than 10 years away, is if you have a spouse who doesn't work, you might not be aware that your spouse has the ability to put money aside into a non-working spousal IRA. Most people think that you have to have earned income yourself to contribute to an IRA, but non-working spouses can contribute based on their spouse's earned income. So if you have income, your spouse has earned income, you can contribute to that IRA and put aside some retirement money for the non-working spouse. There are some adjusted gross income limits on that, so that's one of the things you want to be talking to your CPA about to see if you're eligible, and if you are, you definitely want to take advantage of that. Why are all of these things good to think about in the few years before you retire? Well, that's because the ability to take these tax deductions go away after you have no more earned income. So once you retire, you can't take advantage of them anymore. And then one last thing I want to just mention that kind of isn't specific to having earned income, but that you really want to be thinking about as you approach retirement, is if you do participate in a high deductible health care plan, you want to make sure that you're maximizing your HSA deductions. Because as you approach retirement, what a lot of people do is they maximize their HSAs, but they don't use that money to actually pay expenses in those years. Instead, what they do is they put aside the money and they treat it as a savings account, so that when they do retire, they've got that money set aside, so that when they're no longer earning income and they're kind of trying to figure out their cash flow, they have the money available. And that's also in the years when the medical expenses tend to get higher, is when you're retired, so that then you have the money available to pay those expenses.